Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well and had a good night's sleep. It's very good to be here with you today. ICFSO conferences are always the ones I look forward to the most each year. I think from CPSC staff's perspective, we get a lot out of the conversations that happen here. I know the chairman has mentioned many times in speeches before this body that this is where the conversation on consumer product safety happens. And so it's nice to be with you this whole week, and it's especially nice to have a full day of CPSC Day to share with you. I want to reiterate what Mark said. Our staff is very approachable. One of the things I've heard repeatedly over the course of the last few days is education. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. I think it's demonstrated by the number of people that are in this room. People want to know what they need to do, and they want to do it. And so we're here to help answer questions. We've got a lot of panels that address a lot of different information. But if you have additional questions, or if there's something that's not being touched on today, just find a CPSC staffer or myself or Mark or anyone, and we can certainly guide you to the appropriate individual, and we'll try to get that question answered. If we can't do it here on site, we'll take your information and we'll certainly get back to you as quickly as we can. I also want to reiterate what Mark said about the fact that my presentation has also not been reviewed by the Commission. It has certainly not been approved and may not reflect their views. So with that said, we'll get started. Actually, the first thing I want to do is wish ICFSO a happy 20th anniversary. That's a fantastic accomplishment, certainly to all the founders and others who have been very involved in that process over the last 20 years. It's great to see that history, and it's obviously an organization that's very greatly needed. And it's great to see the attendance continue to grow. I think my understanding is this is the largest attendance ever, and so that's the group's to be congratulated on that. So for those of you that may be less familiar with the CPSC, I wanted to give you just a quick slide on who we are and what we do. Our mission is to protect the public against unreasonable risk of injury from consumer products through education, safety standard activities, regulation, and enforcement. Our vision, and I don't believe we're there yet, but I think we're getting much closer over the course of the last few years, is to be the recognized global leader in consumer product safety. I think we are a recognized global leader, but I don't think we're yet the recognized global leader. And the goals and other activities that we've undertaken over the course of the last few years have moved us very close, I think, to achieving that vision. Goal 1 is leadership in safety. Goal 2, commitment to prevention. Goal 3, rigorous hazard identification. Goal 4, decisive response, and Goal 5, raising awareness. We have a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan that the chairman put in place a couple years ago that gives you a lot more information, fleshes out the goals, the objectives, the targets, things like that. I encourage you to read that. It's on our website if you're interested. It's got a lot more information in there on who we are and what we try to do at certainly a higher level. I want to take a few minutes, though, just to walk through the core operating functions of the agency. We certainly have support offices and things like that as well, but the safety operations pieces that help contribute to achieving our mission and goal. Obviously, our Office of Hazard Identification and Reduction, that's our scientists, engineers, technicians. It's one of our larger offices. Some of the things that they're going to do over the course of the next fiscal year and a half, the remaining part of 13 and into 14, some of the high-level objectives for them. Obviously, continued development of the mandatory safety standards as directed by Congress. We've accomplished a lot of what CPSIA required. We still have some more work to do, especially in the area of the infant durables, the 104 rules, Danny Kaiser rules, and those will stay with us forever. Those are also updated rules that we'll update continually into the future, so we'll be working on those for a long time to come. We want to expand the use of our CPS RMS and drive continued development of this risk management tool. This is a new integrated system marrying our new IT capabilities through IT modernization with a risk assessment approach. Last year, if you were at ICFSO last year, I briefed on these new integrated product teams that we had created and the whole triage process where through data intake we triage incident reports, send them to integrated product teams, which are, there's I think 6 of those, carbon monoxide, mechanical, fire, children's, electrical, and they review each of these incident reports and determine what action to take. Some of them will lead to investigations, some of them ultimately may lead to recalls, some may lead to voluntary standards activities, some may lead to education, and then others may just go into the knowledge base where we have it for future reference if we start to see a pattern emerge. And so that's an important new tool that we've been implementing over the last year, and it's been very successful for us thus far. We want to identify emerging hazards quickly and react to those. Obviously, that's one of the key functions of the EHR unit, is to find those emerging hazards and as quickly as possible mitigate them. And then participate in standards alignment activities, not only domestically but internationally. And we really want to align at the highest levels of safety. That's what we're looking to do. Our compliance and field operations, obviously, you know, Mark Shome, he's been heading that up on an interim basis here for us recently, and I want to commend Mark. He's done a fantastic job, and we certainly appreciate all the work he's done. And some of the core functions over the course of the next fiscal year and a half that they will be doing, we want to assist industry in coming into compliance. Again, this is that education piece. We know that there's a lot of a great hunger for that knowledge. The vast majority of trade want to comply with our regulations. They just need to know how to do that, and so to the extent that we can help them do that, we're here for that. You know, monitoring the marketplace for hazards, and again, to help ensure compliance. So obviously, our compliance piece, they're going to go out and do a lot of market surveillance. If you saw Dennis Blasius, if you saw his panel yesterday, he's head of our field. They spent a lot of time this fiscal year on the resellers market, the secondhand market, and so we're looking there. We're looking at internet. We're doing internet sweeps. We're looking at retail stores. We're doing just exactly what you would think, you know, from an enforcement and ensuring compliance perspective that we would. And then obviously the investigative function, as we get reported incidents, our field investigators can go out and collect samples, interview witnesses, conduct the in-depth investigations, and do that aspect of it as well. And then we want to work with industry to remove non-compliant and dangerous products from the marketplace, you know, recalls, those sort of operations. Our import surveillance group. You know, this is a very quickly growing group within the agency. It wasn't long ago that it was created as a division within the Office of Compliance. The Chairman Tenenbaum pulled that out and created its own office. It's now the Office of Import Surveillance, and we're really looking to target a lot of our efforts towards our import surveillance programs. I'll have a little bit more on that later, and then certainly the first panel, the One Government at the Border type initiatives, will speak more to that as well. But we're really looking to increase our presence there. We've only got 20 port inspectors at 15 major U.S. ports. There's 329, I think, ports of entry right now. We're at 15. So you can do the math. That's not very good coverage, considering the amount of consumer products that are coming through the U.S. borders. So we're looking to expand that. We want to expand our targeting capabilities of the ITDS RAM. And I've actually got a couple slides on that later, so if you don't know what the RAM is, I will definitely introduce it to you. It's something you should all be very interested in. It's I think, very beneficial to most everyone. We want to work with CBP. CBP, Customs and Border Protection, has been a fantastic partner of CPSC. We're able to really leverage their resources, working in combination with them, and really create a lot of synergy that allows us to do things we wouldn't be able to do. Right now, we're looking at perhaps using some of their laboratory capacity at some of our biggest ports of entry. Number one, that would increase our testing capability, and number two, we believe that would expedite the flow of legitimate trade. If we can test products being held at the ports quicker, if found non-violative, we can cut them loose quicker, allow them to enter into the domestic stream of commerce. And then we want to work with customs brokers and other in the trade to, again, educate, to assist them in compliance with our regulations. Our education and global outreach. This is also a new office that Chairman Tenenbaum created, the Office of Education, Global Outreach, and Small Business Ombudsman. If you don't know about this office, I encourage you to learn more about it. We actually have a booth set up out here that's been staffed all week. Again, very approachable people. I encourage you to go by and introduce yourself. But this is really our vehicle for reaching out to the regulated stakeholders. Our Office of Communications does a fantastic job of interacting with consumers and sharing safety messages. But this is a dedicated office to help the trade to come into compliance. And so we have a great focus on that. This is also our international programs are as part of this office piece, our global outreach piece. And so we reach out with other consumer nations and help develop, leverage their influence in trying to convince producer nations to comply with our regulations. We work to build capacity in producer nations. And then we want to cultivate and strengthen relationships with other stakeholders as well. And this is, with particular emphasis on the small business. Neil Cohen, I'm sure you've heard his name. It's probably the most often repeated name here. But if you don't know Neil, if you're a small business, he is a fountain of knowledge on all the different types of CPSC regulations. And I think one of Neil's great characteristics, or one of his great talents, is taking what can sometimes be complex legal requirements and making them simple to understand and easy to understand. And so talk with Neil if you haven't already. And then we're going down a new path somewhat and trying to coordinate and leverage resources with some academic institutions. There's several different institutions that are kind of in this consumer product game right now, and so we're working with them to try to find ways to more efficiently educate stakeholders. Then our information technology. Part of CPSIA of 2008 required IT modernization, which was very gladly received by CPSC. We had for a long time very incrementally developed our IT systems, and we ended up with several siloed systems. Data couldn't be shared across the agency among offices without manual processes, and it really created a lot of issue. So we're going to continue development and support the integrated data system of the CPSC. I'm happy to say fiscal year 2013 is the last year of development funds for that project. Starting with the 2014 budget, it will only be O&M. So we're getting very close to really tearing down those walls and having an integrated data system. Again, the CPS RMS, this is kind of the global risk management system. We want to, again, continue and complete that development. And then the ITDS RAM, there's a very important IT piece to what we're trying to do there, and I'll speak to that in a little bit. And then the consumer outreach piece. One of the big emphases recently for this shop has been to empower consumers with knowledge. And again, it's back to education. But, one of the things CPSC, one of the challenges we face is awareness. People don't know who the CPSC is. If you're industry and you don't know who the CPSC is, it's going to be really hard to comply with our regulations. You probably don't know you're supposed to be. If you're a consumer and you don't know who the CPSC is, you're much less likely to heed our safety messages. And so the Office of Communications has really done a great job recently of trying to empower consumers, and we're doing it through various means. We've got all sorts of social media. We're continuing to look to expand in that field, but certainly, we've got Twitter, Own Safety blog, Pinterest, YouTube, all sorts of different vehicles there for sharing the message. And then saferproducts.gov is certainly a tool that empowers consumers to not only report potential harm or harm from consumer products, but also to search for products that they perhaps are considering buying and seeing if there's other consumers who have had incidents with those. If you haven't checked CPSC's webpage lately, I encourage you to do that. We've had a pretty substantial website redesign recently. We're still obviously doing some tweaks to try to make that even better than it is, but I think it's a vastly improved from the website we had even 6 months ago. And so please check that out if you haven't already. That's just another step, I think, into the 21st century we're taking. And then we continue our outreach to the underserved and minority populations with critical safety information. It's our experience that these populations are disproportionately affected by certain safety hazards. We see drowning, we see furniture tip-overs, things like that, that we really need a targeted message to those certain communities, and so we're making an effort to continue that. So the RAM, the risk assessment methodology. So I don't have, the first panel on Tuesday that had the clickers, which I thought was fantastic. It was very engaging. We're a small agency. The chairman wouldn't let me spring for those, so we're going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. If you are a non-compliant importer or foreign manufacturer, raise your hand. A non-compliant. All right, I don't see any hands. If you're shy but you want to admit it later, just talk to Mark Shum. I'm sure he'll take your business card. But seeing that nobody's raised their hand, what I'm about to tell you about the RAM, if you don't already know about it, should be very good news. The RAM was part of CPSIA. Congress told the CPSC to develop this risk assessment methodology and implement it at the ports. The issue we're facing is the entry of non-compliant hazardous consumer products at the ports that are then being sold at lower prices and competing unfairly against compliant manufacturers. So they're hazardous products harming consumers. They're being sold at lower price points because they're not complying with the rules and therefore competing unfairly with the compliant manufacturers. So if you're trade or if you're consumers, our implementation of this pilot RAM right now is very good news to you, and I'll tell you more details about that. $650+ billion of consumer products are imported in the U.S. In 2011. It's even more than that now. 2010, we saw a little decline when the economy went south, but it's already ticked back up. $1.8 billion daily. That's a lot of consumer product imports that we're responsible for at the ports. Again, we have 20 port inspectors at 15 ports of entry. We're responsible for $1.8 billion daily. We can't possibly do that with the resources we have right now. 800,000 importers. Imports from China and Hong Kong have tripled in the last decade or so. And 4 out of 5, this is, I think, one of the most interesting statistics. 4 out of 5 recalls involve imported products. So it's clear to us as an agency where we can have the greatest impact. Push safety out to the border, interdict these non-compliant hazardous products at the ports before they enter the domestic stream of commerce, and we can greatly enhance safety, we can greatly enhance compliant trade, and we can negate the need to have a recall. And we all know recall effectiveness is pitiful. And once a product's into the hands of consumers, best case scenario, you're getting maybe a quarter of those back. So to the extent that we can keep those from ever reaching the marketplace, it's a win for everybody. So we've got 4 threshold criteria to measure success of the RAM. And I want to emphasize this is just a pilot. It's a very small-scaled version of what we ultimately want to do, assuming full funding. But the pilot is rolled out on just very few ports, and it involves just a few of the rules that we ultimately want to integrate into the RAM system. But we're doing it out of our base budget. We're that confident in it. What little resources we have, we've shifted some to do this pilot. And we've developed 4 criteria that at the end of fiscal year 14, we believe will demonstrate that the RAM is a wise investment. So the first goal that we've set forward is to improve import safety, import surveillance targeting effectiveness. That's an obvious one. Improve your effectiveness. The measure then is our sample yield per 100 import entries. All that means is we get better at pulling samples. And so our goal is to have 30 out of that. Right now, 26 for 13, 30 for 14. And that's a pretty impressive hit rate if we could achieve that. And I think we can based on what we're seeing thus far. Again, facilitate legitimate trade. That's the other piece of this. Our goal is 90% or more of all import shipments to be cleared within 1 business day. And we're already pretty close to that, so I'm confident we'll be able to hit that as well. But that's really just, if you're non-violative product, keep it moving through the port. Don't slow down commerce. Goal 3 is to improve the working effectiveness with CBP to harness existing port resources in interdiction to these products. Now, this is an interesting goal, and I think it's insightful. The way we work with CBP is CPSC issues a hold request to CBP, and then the CBP inspectors can either act on that request and hold the product, or they can refuse to act on it and let the product go through. What we believe is by improving our effectiveness of targeting, that CBP's inspectors will act on more hold requests because they know that it's more likely to be violative. CBP inspectors are held or measured in part on their effectiveness rate. So we're going to measure that and see how many more hold requests are acted on, which we believe will be a very real representation of our ability to effectively target. And then protect U.S. intellectual property rights. We're seeing more and more that our safety jurisdiction very much overlaps with RPI violations. Just because a product is violating property rights doesn't mean necessarily that it's hazardous, but oftentimes we see that in fact that's the case, especially with electrical products, for instance. There seems to be a lot of overlap there, so we're gonna target and measure that. And then the last slide, I think, is probably a question all of you are wondering. I've certainly already received it a couple times this week. What about sequestration? Tomorrow is the day, right? How does that impact CPSC? Well, under the current law, the president has to sign the order tomorrow. I haven't seen much news this morning. If something's changed, please let me know. But my understanding is this is on course to go forward tomorrow. It's about 5% right now across the board for all discretionary agencies. For CPSC, that means about a $6 million cut from our budget, which is pretty significant for us. You know, we're about a $115 million agency, so when you take $6 million out of that, we feel it. This is something, however, that Chairman Tenenbaum has had us planning for a while, and I think we're in a very good position to absorb this if and when it comes down. Again, everything I'm about to say is subject to Commission approval. This would be staff's recommendation. But assuming the sequester order goes into effect, the Commission would have to approve this. But what my recommendation to the Commission will be in that instance would be, 1, no furloughs or reductions in force. We believe that's very important. We are a people-driven agency, and we're positioned such that we can absorb that cut without furloughing or reducing force. It will not affect our planned development of CPS RMS. We need to finalize that. There's a lot of efficiency in breaking down those silos and integrating our data systems, and so we're going to continue to fund that. We're going to continue to fund the import RAM pilot. As I've spoken to already, that's a very important initiative for us, and we believe that's one of the best bangs for the buck that we can do. There won't be any change to our injury data collection efforts. That's core to what we do, and so we will fund that. And there'll be no significant, really, impact to our broad regulatory agenda or the Commission's priorities. What will be impacted is our ability to hire staff as some leave. And we've already been implementing this for a while. It's a critical vacancy approach where managers have to send requests to me, and then I look across the agency and make sure that we're filling those positions that are the most critical and leaving some others vacant, which obviously impacts our ability to do our job, but the staff has done a great job managing that. We're deferring several IT requirements for a few years. This is a lot of support programs, budget applications, things like that. They'd be very good to have. We need them, but we can continue to achieve our mission without them right now. We're scaling back some interagency research agreements, principally nano. That would be my recommendation. We have a role in nano, but when you look across the government, the holistic nano initiative, we're a very small part of that. And then we'll defer lower priority analytical and enforcement efforts, and then just overall belt tightening. We're a very lean agency. We take a lot of pride in that, the amount of work we get done on the little budget we have, but we'll just have to tighten the belt a little bit more if that hits. Thank you very much. Again, it's great to be here with you today. Happy 20th anniversary to ICFSO, and we look forward to the afternoon. Thanks a lot.